Right, so we'll start now. We are missing a couple of people, but we are hoping they will be joining us shortly. They're not needed for the first item, so it's fine. So yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to the Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm just going to go through first. Have we got apologies? So I've got currently apologies from Dave, Ayton Hill and Councillor Clark. Isabel, have you got any more than that? So currently it's just the other people that haven't joined us haven't given their apologies, so they may actually be joining us later. We've got no pre-disclosed. We've got none, have we? No. Yeah. Okay. So if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interests, we've not had any issued, but if anybody's got any that they'd like to declare now, then please do so. No, take those now. Chair's announcements. I haven't got any announcements directly. We got that one. Yeah. So no direct announcements other than just to follow up from, we had the presentation of the changes of well, the consultation on planning, and there was quite a good turnout there. So if everybody that turned out had some questions that wanted to be raised, hopefully they've been submitted in the manner that was discussed at the presentation. So I need to go on to the minutes of the previous meetings, and we've got 2 sets of minutes that I need to sign off. I wasn't present at those meetings, so I'm trusting that if there are any issues, I can be informed of them at the moment. So 1 second for me. Right, so we've got minutes from the 17th of June, and I'll go through page 5, page 6, and page 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Chair?
Yep.
On the minute, that's Councillor, sorry. On the minutes, it said we're going to incorporate the electric bus questions in the bus debate today, and that doesn't seem to have happened. So I don't know if that's been done separately or not.
Yeah, that's news to me, so I will pick that up after. Have you got the questions in front of you that you want raise it?
Chair, we're talking about the work programme, and we mentioned on page 10 of this month's these minutes that we're going to discuss the bus electrification as part of the bus item on this today's agenda, and that hasn't happened. So
just bear with me 1 second, Councillor Condacroft. I'll find out what's going on for you. So I suspect this is going to come to...
Mark Ryder's indicating.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, just to say, Chair, there's no reason why we can't pick that up during the discussion on the bus item today. And if there's anything further needed that hasn't been prepared for, then we can always follow that up in addition.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's probably going to be supplementary after the fact if it can't be covered in the item that we've got on the table at the moment. So is everybody happy apart from that I can agree these minutes?
Yeah, move the minutes, Claire.
Okay, thanks. So we'll go on to the minutes from the 23rd of July. I've got it on page 13 and page 14. Is there any dissent on any of those? I'll take it that that's an agreement then.
Move the minutes there as well.
Thanks. So next we've got public speakers, which nobody registered for public speaking, so we can move on from that one. And we are going to go on to questions to portfolio holders. Unfortunately, we haven't got a lot of the full set of portfolio holders here today. So if there are anything
You've got me.
that needs, I know.
That's it.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
Quality, not quantity.
If we have the ones questions for anybody that isn't available.
You've got me as well.
Oh,
We-
Heather.
Yeah.
Go on.
She basically meant we haven't got Councillor Clark.
If you would let me finish, please, as the chair, we have not got a full complement of portfolio holders here today, but if there are any questions for the portfolio holders not present, I shall take them and you will receive written responses. Thank you.
Brilliant.
So, any questions? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much. I was going to say that Councillor Clark isn't here and he's the most useful one, but I don't want to show favouritism and or pass opinions. But it's always highway problems we have.
He's the most
so
useful one.
I don't know if Mark Riley could answer instead, but it mentions we've got the SIF bid for the highway improvements for Nuneaton coming to the next cabinet, and it would be really useful to have a vague idea of the scope of those improvements, because we get these SIF bids come to the cabinet and they say this is only the financial part. You know, the cabinet approves the finance, but where has the what we're doing part of it been approved rather than how much it costs? Thank you, Chair.
Mark, are you happy to take that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. I mean, within the cabinet report, which is currently being worked up, there is the detail of what each component part of that overall scheme does look like. I mean, I won't go into the detail of that now, but we can share that, and it under the Transforming Nuneaton programme. And Councillor Condacor is correct that this is about agreeing the financial contribution from the county council for these schemes, but it does give detail about what the schemes will achieve.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Condacor, then.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mark. I think it is useful to discuss the details of the schemes in parallel or in front of the funding, because otherwise we get 4 million or 20 million and yet we haven't decided what we're doing. So I think that some pre-consultation on the schemes is quite useful in case we want them to be bigger or smaller or slightly different. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fradgley next, please. Then Councillor
Thank you,
Shield.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just Mark, it was a question really about the regeneration paper that was produced not so long ago. In 7.9, it talked about housing and regeneration being focused on Rugby, Nuneaton and Bedworth. I was just wondering where Stratford or the South might actually, Stratford District or the South or Warwick might actually figure there.
Yeah,
Mark, over to you.
yeah, I'm happy to take that. Oh, Jenny, Councillor Fradgley, we're talking about the recovery.
Yes,
That's what
yeah,
I'm
the recovery plan.
trying to work it out. Oh, recovery.
Sorry, I haven't got it with me. I'd hold it up otherwise. Sorry.
No, that's
I
okay.
wondered whether it was either the recovery one or the property company one. I'm not quite sure which one it is, really, Jenny.
If you have, well, carry on. I'll go and get it from upstairs, and I can show you the cover so you know exactly what it is.
I think just a general point on that, though, I think that wouldn't be exclusive. I think the example cited would be known, you know, Transforming Nuneaton, for example, as a known regeneration project. So I don't think it's the idea is that it is exclusive, but you know,
It was just the way it was written appeared to have some exclusivity to it, and it just raised a few alarm bells. But I'm quite happy to email you about it and talk about it afterwards for more clarity.
I think back to the point, there is a programme in the Transforming Nuneaton programme which has already been agreed and identified, as Mark says. There is a programme too in Rugby which has already been agreed and identified, and I think that's it. But there's never been a reason why we would attach it just to one area and not another, other than already identified projects, and maybe there are others that are coming through.
I'll follow it up for more clarity, but it just raised slight alarm bells when I read it. That was all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Dave, Councillor Shilton, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mine's to do with the health of the COVID-19. I have sent the portfolio Les emails, but up to now I haven't had an answer. Perhaps he's still trying to get them. But I think we should know. It's been announced quite recently that the nurses and doctors throughout the country, not just Warwickshire, it's Warwickshire I want to know about, are struggling to get tested. So they can't go to work. That's doctors and nurses and health carers.
Dave,
Is there any chance we can find this out, please?
Can I just, it's not really for this committee, to be honest. It might be preferable if you raise that question at the Health, Adult Social Care and Health OSC under questions for portfolio, because I know Les actually attends those ones. It might be useful to take that question there. I mean, I'll ask.
I'll follow it up, Dave, with Les and see, that you get an answer, and I'm sure everyone will be interested in that as well. It's perfectly, it's a very current question, and I suspect that Les is trying to get some details from the health colleagues, and I think if it's any help to you, my understanding is that within the providers, that's the hospitals, they do organise their own testing for their own staff. It's not us.
Yeah.
I thank you for that, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Seckham, for that answer. That's acceptable, but I think we do need to know. A lot of people are asking questions, and I think we've got to be able to answer them at the moment.
Yeah. Are there any further questions to the portfolio holders? I'm not seeing any hands. Isabel, my hands were playing up yesterday, so can you see any either? Just double check. Okay, so there's no further questions to portfolio holders. So if we can move on to the economic update, I believe is that Matthew? Yeah, so if anybody's got any questions to pose to Matthew, then can I see any hands, please? Councillor Condicote.
Thank you very much, Chair. The arts challenge stuff looked quite interesting on the first page. And one of the things we were talking about yesterday was the canal network. So I didn't know if we're going to use the two together, because there's some great opportunities to do art along the canal network, which would actually then tie in with some of our tourism and just a general ambition to get city of culture tied in as well. So that was the first point. The second point, there doesn't seem to be very much about climate change and building back better agenda in the recovery and economic update. And I think there does need to be this strand of actually a lot of the new jobs are going to be climate based. We vaguely talk about the battery stuff at the end, but it is going to play a big part in actually where we go in the future. So I didn't know whether the sort of recovery plan should tease out a bit more the green jobs. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. If you want to pick that one up.
In terms of the first question about the canal network and how that fits with the proposed grant scheme, could I pick that up with the colleagues leading on it and provide a further update to the committee, please?
Yeah.
And then secondly, in terms of the climate change agenda, members will obviously be aware that it's a priority in the COVID recovery plan. And the 4 or 5 projects that are listed in the paper, they're just the first few projects that have been approved. We're expecting others to come forward over the next few months that will be addressing that obviously very important climate change priority, and also support for the environmental technology sector as well.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Chair, it sort of means it'll be answered in the future when we get the other proposals through.
Okay.
I do look forward to some more climate change stuff coming into this recovery programme and coming early and not sort of put at the back end like it often does.
Thanks. Councillor Seckham is indicated as well.
Thank you very much. Just on the first point that you brought up, Keith, the art challenge, as you will see from the report, talks about how it was used as an initiative to try to help recover the high street and trying to help residents to keep safe space. You know, if you've been into Leamington and seen, they've done some fantastic stuff there, which is quite eye-catching, but also is, you know, sort of identifying you need to keep your distance as well. So that was the initial proposal around this arts challenge, was all about COVID, all about trying to remind people, keep you aware of safe space, distancing, but also bring people back into the high street as well safely. It does go on in this briefing to talk about how the linkages will build towards Coventry City of Culture, and that makes sense, because if we have got this programme in place and then it morphs through, that does make sense. And only yesterday, Matthew, I would say, I think you've probably been sort of jumped a little bit, but because it was only yesterday that we had got that proposal around the canals, and I think that would be good. I think it would be great to enliven the and bring the arts into that area and make it attractive, because it is another access point. It's not about COVID in that same sense as the high street bit was, but it does have some opportunities which would be interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Seckham. Is there any other questions on this item? I'm not seeing any hands here. No. Okay, so we'll now move on to the next item, which is the presentation by the Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership, and that will be delivered to us by Paula Dees, who is the Deputy CEO, excuse my getting mixed up, Deputy CEO of the CWLEP, and Phil Peake, who is the Operations Director of the CWLEP Growth Hub. So it will be, I'll hand over to the presenters.
Okay. Thank you, Claire, Chair. Nice to meet you all. I know some of you, but not all of you. As Claire said, I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership, joined by my colleague Phil Peake, who is going to help me out on some of the stuff when we get to the Growth Hub. Thank you for whoever the presentation fairy is. I think it could be Isabel. So we're going to become good friends after this. Isabel, I am genuinely making a commitment to you. I'm not going to bore you senseless with the 20 plus slides that are in here. I'm going to kind of keep it very light touch, pick out the salient points. I've broken it into 4 kind of aspects of the presentation. Bit of an opportunity to just kind of give you a context refresher for some of you that may or may not know about what the LEP does. A bit of a refresh. Wait, hang on, Isabel. Is it Isabel? Sorry, it's moving slides. Can I give you a nod when I want to move? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great stuff. So just to sort of tell you how I'm going to take you through the presentation, because it is long. The bit at the start of the refresher, I'm going to take you through a bit of a reflection piece on some of the funding that we've secured and how Warwickshire's benefited. I'm then also going to sort of give you a bit of a short summary, and I don't want to kind of like labour the point, but it's important so you see how we have responded working with you to COVID and our reset strategy, and then importantly sort of give you a bit of a flavour of the kinds of initiatives that we are working on to make sure that Warwickshire protects and resets and in fact grows its economy. So thanks Isabel. If you can just go to the next slide for me, which is hopefully a diagram. It's not an eye test. It's literally meant to sort of remind people that this whole setup around local enterprise partnerships, we've probably outstayed our welcome in terms of economic growth constructs, but we've been around since 2012. Probably still some people we're to Marmite, but I think for us on our patch we do really well. The purpose of this slide is to show you that we are made up of a very strong board, and at the moment the board is chaired by Nick Abel, who is our vice chair, who has kindly agreed when our former chair Jonathan Browning stepped down earlier in the year to stay around on the board until March 21 next year. We will be looking for a new chair post next March, and I did want to illustrate to the members of this particular committee that the only reason we are successful is because we are a very, very strong partnership of public and private sector directors working collaboratively and collectively together to help ensure the growth of the economy. The board is fully reflective of all of you as districts in the county in terms of the public sector. It's got both universities and FE represented on the actual board, and a strong cross-section of business and private sector that reflects both the business interests of the Coventry and Warwickshire area, but also the structure of the economy. We continually, from government, seek to impress them with our performance. So we have, over the time in which we have been reviewed, we have secured exemplar performance ratings from government in terms of governance, strategy and delivery. So that's just to provide you with a bit of assurance. If you could perhaps just skip, just sort of show the next two slides, Isabel, that would be great, just as I'm talking, a bit about our role, which I don't think I need to sort of go through in great detail. It's just really to sort of say to you that you know that we are working in a national context. We're here to deliver government's growth agenda, working with a number of stakeholders at a number of different spatial levels around the Midlands engine, working with the combined authority, and of course working with other like-minded LEPs ourselves. That's like motherhood and apple pie. You guys don't really need to spend time on that. You know these are the salient points around why things are good in Coventry and Warwickshire, and what we're trying. I'll talk more later about what we're trying to do to make sure we preserve those. So the next sort of 2 or 3 slides are really the bit that I said I would do around the reflective piece of what have we done with the money that we've secured. And this is a fund called the Local Growth Fund. And for Warwickshire, you will see across the patch, we're spending 43.5 million on a number of projects. Those projects in the boxes down the side are across the piece, both across the whole of Warwickshire. But if you could just go to the next one, Isabel, there's the Stanks Island. On the next slide, there's Europa Way. We then go on to talk about transforming Nuneaton. And what I'm trying to reflect in some of these slides is that whether it's about improving traffic, whether it's about, as Councillor Conacher says, looking for green, looking for new ways of traffic movement, cycling, contributing to the regeneration of our towns and cities, we are spending a significant proportion of that local growth fund on enhancements to Warwickshire. And in terms of the outcomes on the very first set of these slides, we're hoping that this money, well, we know that this money in particular will lead to some transformative changes in a number of those schemes. The next slide, and I would say also on these 3 schemes in particular, an inordinate amount of work has gone on and continues to go on to make sure that these schemes have accelerated and have in fact responded to the implications and impacts of COVID. And I have to sort of use this opportunity to thank a number of political representations and in fact officers for helping move those schemes forward during a very difficult time. In more latter announcements for the Commonwealth Games, that's been a relatively recent announcement. But again, that's 1.79 million awarded for into Warwick District Council area. But that is primarily aimed at upgrades in and around Leamington Station, enhancing the visitor experience, when we expect, fingers crossed everybody, that by 2022 we will be welcoming people for a very important event when Royal Leamington Spa indeed hosts the bowls for the Commonwealth Games. So that is it's a blended scheme. It's infrastructure upgrades, as I say, to the train station, and at the same time making upgrades to the very important facilities to enable Leamington and the wider area to host this prestigious event. So almost moving to the third part of the presentation, if that's okay, Isabel, if you don't mind flicking on. Again, I don't want to kind of teach grandma how to suck eggs, but I just thought it was really pertinent to sort of mention that this part of the presentation will illustrate, obviously, we're in a very different place to where we were pre-COVID, albeit with many challenges ahead of the economy. Coventry and Warwickshire's economy was in pretty good shape, and I think what we would all do now to have some of those figures against our economy, you know, that goes without saying. They speak for themselves. You know, we had low unemployment rates. We were in a really fantastic position around growth. We were seeing a kind of a very marked change in terms of MVQ levels, etc., etc. So the point of kind of flagging that up there is that actually, oh, hasn't life changed? And looking at the next slide, thanks, Isabel. Like you, in terms of your recovery plan, and indeed this has been very much kind of a joint effort. We've used and worked very closely with Mark and Monica and Dave and Matt around some of the phasing. Again, you know, you guys can read this slide. What I would stress to you is we've worked in the context of the government timeline, but the main points on this particular slide is, regardless of these phases, crisis, foundation, consolidation, and acceleration, you will all appreciate that, obviously from yesterday's announcement, we have overlaps between these phases. We think we're going into consolidation and acceleration, and then sometimes we have to go back to crisis response. You know, the constant battle is that we have to find this very delicate balance between the interventions that we make and we want to make. We have to find this balance between doing the right things for health reasons and the right things for wealth reasons. We don't profess to have that right every time, but what I would say to you as an overview and scrutiny committee is we're very open and willing to talk to all of our partners around doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. So as a result of that, thanks, Isabel, if you could just let the committee see, we've got some reset objectives, again, you know, focusing on a couple of those, you know, again, sort of responding to some of the initial interest from this committee. We have tried where possible, and it's, you know, it's tough, but I think there is a definite marked change to this becoming not necessarily a nice to have, but an imperative around a green and sustainable reset and recovery. And we have tried to make that a feature in terms of the funding that we are aiming to secure from government, and in our thinking around business reinvention and reimagination. So from those 8 objectives, Isabella, if you could just kind of flip to the next one, what we have is a number of pillars, strategic reset pillars, and all of those 6 on there, they are designed basically to provide you with a context for the kind and a narrative for the kinds of activities that we as an economic growth agency would be doing alongside our partners. Again, I'm sure they are not going to be a great deal of surprise to you in terms of what you'd expect us to see across the economic development piece for us to deliver jobs, innovation, again, the green focus, really trying to get business and industry to think about bold approaches, how they might reinvent themselves, how our communities might reinvent themselves. We've had already conversations about the reinvention of town centres, and then again, particularly around transforming infrastructure in a very different sense, around thinking about how we use our energy, how we use fibre, how we use 5G, and how we transform indeed our infrastructure around the kinds of modes of transport that that might well be something of more significance in the future, the shift in electrification, the way we use trains, the way we're going to use our cars, and hopefully, again, a little bit more inspirational around the way in which people take to other modes such as cycling, which you will hopefully have seen in the reflection of some of the funding that we previously awarded, and in fact, as we go forward, some of the type of funding that has been successful around cycling under a future fund, which skipping to the next one, Isabella, that's just a very quick glance. You'd expect us to kind of put up there something around the levers and influence that we can use. And I just wanted to again provide assurance to this committee that in working in the political context that we're in, that every opportunity, whether that's us as in our own right through our contacts with our own officials, DGs, permanent secretaries in all those government departments, through the Growth Hub, through the Combined Authority, through our network influence, we are using every possible lever and mechanism to try and make sure that Coventry and Warwickshire's needs are fully reflected. One of those things where we think we've done that is in this particular programme, which, Isabella, thank you. This is our Getting Building Fund, which is, it's in fairness, it's just, the best way to describe it. It was a very short-term fiscal intervention announced by government, announced, discussed, appraised, agreed, secured, and we're about to start spending in probably what was a period of less than 6 weeks. We are just finally waiting for the paperwork to secure us to get moving on those spending allocations. For us, in terms of Coventry and Warwickshire LEP, for Warwickshire, it was a straight allocation of 8.1 million through the local enterprise partnership, done slightly differently this time, where we had to split our allocations, Coventry seeking theirs through the Combined Authority route and Warwickshire through a traditional local enterprise partnership route. But we have preserved the integrity of one Coventry and Warwickshire in that rather complicated process. And in terms of the map, which I think is the next slide, Isabella, if you wouldn't mind, what we've tried to show on here is the reflection that we put together a very blended package, which was, I have to say, all credit to stakeholders on the patch in Warwickshire, county, district, FE, universities, the private sector, coming up in a really short period of time with what I think are, clearly very quick turnaround, but a good blend of projects that, has a good, strong focus on green and recovery, around cycling, around electrification, around rethinking skills, particularly in the Stratford-upon-Avon area, certainly responding to some of the needs around the repurposing of town centres. We've got a great scheme up in Nuneaton around repurposing office facilities, housing in Rugby, more office in Leamington, and trials of e-car clubs, cycling, etc. So it was a real tall order, and I think the whole of Warwickshire's stakeholders need to be congratulated immensely for all their hard work in impressing upon government that the 8.1 million that was allocated could absolutely be spent. And I'll say to you, we had absolutely no pushback from government around any of these projects. So they have been very, very well received. So really, really pleased in that regard. And then probably the final bit of the presentation, and obviously Phil and I'd be delighted to answer any questions. This is a bit about saying to you, in terms of what the LEP does on a day-to-day basis, if you kind of think back to the first slide in our architecture, we're a company limited by guarantee, but we're a public-private partnership. It's a very odd construct, but we're a private sector entity spending public sector money, and we're very mindful of that. But what we do is, through our champions network, we reach out, we really try and get into the business minds thinking, and we try to feed that back so that the products and the funding that we secure, the business support packages that we create, the skills interventions, they are based genuinely on what businesses tell us they need. The Champions has been reinvented in its own right over the time that we've gone into the pandemic. This network, which was a classic 150 plus people in a room every 2 months listening to speakers, has reinvented itself and continued to operate attracting over 150 people virtually, networking, listening to speakers, and keeping, if you like, the confidence alive for what Coventry and Warwickshire has to offer. That's one aspect of our business. The other bit, which is of absolute importance, our flagship business subsidiary, business-to-business facing entity called the Growth Hub, that deals directly with businesses on every aspect of business needs. And Phil is going to just take you through some of the headlines of those numbers to illustrate the range and reach into Warwickshire.
Thank you, Paula, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's keeping well through these difficult times. You can read the numbers there for yourselves. The key point, I guess, is that we thought we were busy last year. We dealt with more businesses last year than ever before. This year, we've been ridiculously busy at times. We've spoken to, since the 1st of March, when clearly our world changed, spoken to approximately 3,000 businesses directly. We're very proud to say every single inquiry that came in, we dealt with and spoke to. We've had over 700 new businesses we've not spoken to before, and there's information and guidance going out to something like 7,000 businesses on a weekly basis. The key point here in the centre of the screen at the bottom, there is a report called the Smart Region Report that we author and generate in combination with the County Council, with Matthew and Mark's team, and also with the City Council. And that is collating data which is injected straight into government, straight into the business department on a weekly basis. And we've had that acknowledged as being an exemplar across the country and has helped them shape policy, both in terms of the initial response around survival of businesses and as they start to shape the recovery response for policies for businesses. So that's a vital piece of work that is ongoing and will continue. Those are the key points I want to raise. Paula, back to yourself.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of some of the other areas of our work, this is an absolutely vital part of the reinvention of the economy, and I think it's just worth pulling out because it's been a particular example of where we've had some really good collaborative work, particularly with the teams in Warwickshire, around the important aspect of keeping young people really front and centre stage of thinking about their careers, which is very difficult when you can clearly see some of the impact in the very short and medium term affecting young people probably more strongly than other age groups, and particularly the Warwickshire Careers Hub, working with Faye, I think works with Matt and Mark Faye in the county. These guys have been going into secondary schools, finding really innovative ways of being able to get access into schools, getting businesses to link with these schools to provide both virtual and online opportunities for work experience, which if you think in the current climate of businesses obviously dealing with on a day-to-day basis with their own challenges, I'm proud to say that I think it's around 46 secondary schools that are in Warwickshire. Gemma in my team assures me that they've had brilliant responses from the schools in and around the county and in the districts to say that they are still really mindful that these children need these opportunities to think about work experience and to help, all things considered, think about what their sort of future routes into employment might be. So that's a nice piece of news to have, really. And then probably the kind of another bit around, again, hopefully this is some kind of response to sort of where Coventry and Warwickshire have got a great deal of strength around particularly the green electrification agenda. We are home to the UK Battery Industrialisation Centre, based up in Warwick District. Probably, I would say, just timing wise, it's probably not as visible as it ought to be, but it was a brilliant success that the area secured. £126 million investment. You can see there are 100 new jobs ultimately. But what I guess the reason for kind of trailing this in this particular slide is that this is actually illustrative of this region's both strength in research and developments, but strength and capability in terms of actually kind of the manufacturing of this kind of sector strength. And actually what it does is it gives us absolute credibility for pitching to government that if they are considering gigafactory locations, then Coventry and Warwickshire, across a number of sites, has a number of options that they really ought to take us very seriously when looking at locations for that particular investment. And I know it's pretty much dominated by the automotive sector in terms of this electrification agenda, but the work that we've done, certainly around the manufacturing sector, full stop, electrification goes across the piece, certainly in terms of rail, and also kind of we've looked very, very strongly at energy needs as well. So again, that's just a sort of a centerpiece around our strength and trying to sort of look forward, or given the challenges that we know we are facing. So really, I just wanted to sort of conclude on questions really, and you know, in these environments, I think it's really important that, you know, these dialogues with scrutiny committees give us the chance that, as a starter for a conversation, we're very open to through your board representation, or indeed direct to us, that you are part of that reset strategy that we're creating. We've got probably more questions than answers, because probably like you as kind of local authority politicians, you know, you're trying to second guess what might be national policy coming forward. But we've got obviously a one Coventry and Warwickshire approach, which we are really keen to preserve, albeit others might have a different future mapped out for us. Whatever you've been hearing, likewise, you know, our sort of rumours are suggesting that Devo is still on the books, but potentially delayed. So again, we're trying to track that. We're very clear that we obviously need to kind of try and manage around securing the levelling up agenda. We have potentially a CSR. Is it multi-year? Is it 1 year? Again, still to be confirmed. I guess for us, what we try and do in and amongst sort of navigating all that policy landscape, which is extremely important, is what we try and provide assurance with to you as obviously very important stakeholders, but as important to businesses and to the people that have the jobs in those businesses, is that we're all about delivery. And if we can get those things achieved in the final year of our growth fund, get the money spent on getting building fund, that we will maintain and preserve you know, a strong economy, and we can be part of something which looks like a future. There's a final slide which really, you know, we try and put up at the end of these kind of presentations, which shows that we're just one. If you wouldn't mind just flicking to the final slide, we're just one agency. Is there no more slides? Okay, fair enough. There's a collaboration slide, but we're just one agency, really, amongst many, and you are in, you know, as part of this committee and in your own right as districts and county council politicians, you're part of that architecture. So we'd be delighted to answer any questions.
Back on. Thank you for that. Before I go to questions from members, I'm going to use the chair's privilege just to ask a couple of things. Now, I know you said about going into schools for careers, and that is a really innovative way to tap into the younger generation, and I'm sure that's both useful for yourselves and useful for the schools, because it will be a two-way conversation. The kids surely will tell you things you didn't know, because I know my kids tell me things I don't know every day of the week and twice on Sundays. But what about older people? For you know, we are in a period where unemployment is expected to go up. Myself, I'm a recent redundancy. After 15 years, I find myself jobless, and there's going to be a lot of people like me. So what have you got coming forward for people who are not in schools but possibly need assistance reskilling, or even just getting back into the jobs market? Because trying to find a job during a pandemic is no fun. Let me tell you that. So what are you planning on that kind of front?
All right. Do you want me to answer that first? Yeah.
Yes, please, and then we can go on.
All right. So in terms of and thanks for your comments on schools. I think it's a really good point around the children know best. And if that's not normally about technology, I don't know what it is. So, I mean, you pose a really interesting question, and just being really genuinely honest with you, that whole debate around reskilling is up for grabs. We've got a number of existing programmes that are delivered through both through FE provision, through already funded European programmes around reskilling, whether that's kind of like, and I'm using the terms glibly, but you know, I know rugby have looked at kind of plumbers, hospitality to plumbers, that kind of initiative. But genuinely, Claire, what I would say to you is we are in the processes of developing those, because they're going to have to be rewritten, because some of those adversely affected sectors that for the reasons of the pandemic we did not expect, we don't have those bespoke schemes, so we are in react mode. There's a whole host of different other job shop agencies. There's certainly through the county council, I know there's a job shop brokerage scheme. Coventry have a job shop, the Growth Hub. We do lots of signposting. We've got a portal that I'm sure Phil will probably want to talk about, which posts vacancies. So we're looking to try and match supply and demand. But I think what the pandemic has illustrated is that what we previously had, where we thought we would need to repurpose and reskill, doesn't necessarily fit the bill. And with the end of European funding and the likely creation of a new funding envelope through the UK SPF fund, all of those skills packages, whether that's through an adult education budget, etc., they're all basically going to have to be re-looked at, which doesn't, as I completely appreciate, doesn't necessarily help in the here and now. Phil, is there anything you want to add on Find It in terms of kind of older people and reskilling and vacancies?
No, I mean, only you mentioned there the portal there, Paula. There's a digital platform we've been working on, which initially was for businesses, B2B, but we're looking at an extension to that, as Paula mentioned, around helping individuals. As you rightly say, Claire, there's going to be a tsunami of redundancies. We have to face that fact. Matt and his team, we've got a discussion, I believe, tomorrow to try and iron out some of the final details on that, with the intention of getting that going live very shortly as a regional response to complement a lot of what is already going on at national level.
That's good to know that actually it's being addressed. So I'll open up to questions from everybody else, and I've got Dave, John Holland, Jenny Fradgley, and Keith Condacore. So over to you, Councillor Shilton.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for a brilliant presentation. Very, very useful. I found that, and very, well done. My question is, around our areas, we have a lot of conference centres, hotels, conference centre and hotel, where they put a lot of people up who are struggling at the moment because they can't put people in, can't have the conferences because of the restrictions on them. Are you doing anything there, or are you looking into anything where you can help or advise them of a way forward? Because they are struggling, and they do employ one hell of an amount of people, which at the present moment being laid off, being made redundant. I'd like to know if you are taking those on board. Thank you.
Okay. Talking about hospitality in the hotel sector.
So, sorry. I was just checking your geographical location, but you're talking about the hospitality in the hotel sector. Yeah, my location is I live in Kenilworth.
Kenilworth, yeah.
Directly around this area itself.
Yeah.
With the NEC and everything else. It's been quite a strain on them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What we do have as part of the architecture is a culture and tourism business group, and that is led by Helen Peters, who is one of our board directors. And we are just currently in the process of working up a number of initiatives. We have been lobbying hard to government through the combined authority and directly ourselves about a targeted scheme that would hopefully see the retention of furloughing for some of those most adversely affected sectors, of which hospitality, hotels, we absolutely know are going to be the hardest hit and will take the longest to return, certainly to business as usual. We also offer through the Growth Hub opportunities for businesses to engage about how they might repurpose some of their businesses. But I appreciate that obviously many hotels are part of national groups, and again that option might not be available to them. I think what I would say to you is that through the Culture and Tourism Business Group, I will certainly get one of our executive team to perhaps reach to you directly and get some more specific issues that, if there are, we can feed those in.
Thank you very much for that. It's a good answer. It's nice to know you've got it on in mind anyway.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave. John, Councillor Holland.
Thank you. Actually, my questions are going to be remarkably similar, because I thought it was an absolutely excellent presentation. I mean, in terms of the content, that you have, I think, correctly understood the problem and got a sensible way forward, and really hit the key targets. So well done. In southern Warwickshire, the hospitality industry does employ a lot of people, and I represent Warwick West, which actually includes the old Clink. And in the last financial year, I had a project and looked on your website, and it said you committed your funds, but fill in this form to register an interest, which I did, and I got no response. And I phoned the office, and they said the website was maintained by someone else and they would chase it up, but I haven't had an acknowledgement. And
what was the project, Councillor Holland?
Well, that's what I'm coming on to now, because the time, obviously the hospitality industry is still very limited in what it can do, but that is the time to invest. And if there's any rebuilding or reconstruction needed, now is the time to be doing it, ready for when restrictions can be eased. And the Lord Leicester Hospital is a major tourist attraction in Warwick. Their business plan is for a major expansion of customer numbers, which will then have a spin-off to all of the surrounding hotels and cafes and restaurants and so on. And we have 3/4 of the money to restore the historic building. But I see it as an economic development project. The money we've raised is from a historical buildings project aspect, but it's the economic development side which may be most important, bearing in mind there are an awful lot of people working in the hospitality industry who are either effectively redundant now or going to be redundant very soon. And they have specialist skills, and obviously retraining takes time, and if people have acquired these skills, we ought to be making use of them. Although I fully accept your projects and the green agenda and new industries, new technologies, obviously is important as well. So I'm saying that now is the time for any rebuilding projects in hospitality. We have a project ready to go. We've got 3/4 of the money, and the spin-off for all the surrounding areas, really in the whole of South Warwickshire, from Kenilworth to Stratford.
Well, what I would say to you on that is, Councillor Holland, and sincere apologies for that. Well, it doesn't sound a very acceptable response back to your lodging of that particular project. What we absolutely have now really got in response to certainly trying to secure the Get In Building Fund is a mechanism for those projects for the project like the Lord Leicester you've just described, to get into our list, and I will make sure that somebody contacts you to get the specifics of that project, because it's exactly the kind of thing that we'd be looking for, because we're almost sure, unless Izzy tells me something different, but all the signs are that we would expect to be a beneficiary of an additional round of GBF funding. So where we've got projects that are ready to go, that look promising, that can deliver, and as you say, Lord Leicester sounds like something for the future in terms of when the good times return. It sounds like a prime project that we should at least be making sure that we are interrogating and exploring. So we'll make sure we do that.
Thank you.
Alex, sorry, I'm having some slight technical issues as a bit of a hangover from yesterday, I think. So next we've got Councillor Fradgley.
Thank you, Chair. My patch is South Warwickshire and specifically Stratford upon Avon. So we've taken a kind of massive hit with the downtime on the theatre, and actually no confidence yet as to when any of that can actually come back. I think the town's actually struggled moderately well with the help that the county gave in the COVID architecture on the street. So cafes and little cafes and things are beginning to come back. But there is I had a conversation this morning actually, there's a real concern that in the downtime coming into the winter, a place like Stratford has got absolutely nothing to kind of carry it over. It's been doing moderately well with day trippers and staycations. I mean, the hotels have been quite full. We've been quite lucky from there, and people have been coming in from Birmingham for day trippers. But I think we're going to be looking at an incredibly downtime from November through to when any kind of tourism might actually start up again. We need to look at diversification. We need to look at actually more resilience. We can't go forward just relying on one major industry for the town, which is a theatre, which is wonderful. But we've got to be looking to diversify. And it'd be interesting to know what kind of ideas are actually coming forward to support that diversification. I mean, a tiny thing which I've been looking at, because I help out on the station, and there is quite an interesting railway history in Stratford. It's not massive, but it's quite an interesting. How do we actually start to build up some of these small micro tourist industries again to actually help in the future?
Yeah. Okay. I just respond to that. I mean, I don't have the magic bullet. I do have kind of a sense of very much from your particular locality, Councillor Fradgley, the significant impact, certainly in terms of 43% of your workforce being either unemployed, furloughed, etc., which is, you know, from the normal operating approach of an area like Stratford upon Avon, this is beyond anything that you guys have ever experienced. And what I would say is that is front and centre stage of our thinking, along with, you know, the impact of other parts of the county and the adverse effects that other areas are facing. And we are just starting to develop, and Phil might want to say a little bit more about this, but we are starting to develop through the portal ways in which to get those diversification conversations going. Helen, who, as I say, runs the Culture and Tourism Business Group, Bill Blinko, who works on our executive alongside Mark and Councillor O'Boyle from Coventry, who run the Planning and Housing Group. They are really trying to think of innovative ways to reinvent parts of the county, and Stratford is very much front and centre stage. In fact, our chair, Nick Abel, is also a director on Stratford Birthplace Trust, and you know, he talked really passionately about taking tourism out to the world and getting tourism in its own right to diversify and almost digitalise itself and not be reliant on, you know, the normal ways in which we have experienced visitors. So there's a lot of appetite. I don't have, as I say, all the answers. There's a lot of appetite, enthusiasm, and I certainly think through Councillor Jefferson on the board, he's very, very clear and very, very passionate to make the point around the impact for Stratford, you know, as indeed are all of your respective district leaders, that you know, that there are, and Izzy ourselves, that, you know, this is a really tough time for Warwickshire, and we've all got to put our collective heads together to
we're all suffering badly. This area has got too many eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
and we've really got
absolutely.
to think about how we diversify.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone? Am I looking at anyone else, Claire? Any?
Councillor Condacourt next. Again. Sorry, my machine is not happy. Councillor Condacourt, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a very useful presentation. We've come a long way with the LEP. I was one of its really massive critics in its early days, when you're very focused on a narrow set of items very much into road building and supporting the car industry. It's amazing how it's grown, and it's now taking on so many more different areas. So it's definitely a glass is now half full situation. And there's an awful lot to do, which you recognise a lot of this, particularly the skills agenda.
Yeah.
Because we really suffer from needing better skills, more diverse skills, particularly in Eton and Bedworth. I do see one conflict of interest with your vice chair managing the trusts, the Midland Academy Trust, which is one of our weaker education establishments, the secondary schools. So I do think we really need to improve there. Said that, there's a lot of good stuff happening, and I'm quite keen on things like coding clubs, where actually we can give people skills to develop applications and computer games, whatever, which you do not need to be in a particular place to do. It is an ideal sort of industry and skill set. Also on tourism, it's really, really important we gear up for next summer being a summer when people holiday in the UK.
Yeah.
Even if we get COVID under control in some countries and some places, we're not going to see the Americans come over to Stratford or the Chinese come over. But there's a massive market for the UK to have holidaying in the UK. So, and Warwickshire, as I said yesterday, is an absolutely beautiful county. So we really need to try and reinvent ourselves and be a destination for people having a week on the canals or a week cycling around, or maybe some more outdoor sporty type activities or history things. I mean, there's so many different strands, and they're sort of niches. The final thing I wanted to mention was about all the battery technology.
Yeah.
We're not a gigafactory. Gigafactories are in deserts, and the name gigafactory comes from gigawatt hour of batteries, and they're 3,000 employees, and they'd just swamp any of our towns if we built a Musk gigafactory here. So we're going to be in the niche batteries or the different batteries, but also we should be looking at the other parts of the electric car chain.
Yeah.
Because obviously the batteries prices go down and get commoditized, but there's the gearboxes, the electronic systems, cars will have radars and all sorts of other technologies in them. So looking at a car, if we just focus like everyone else on the batteries, we'll find it's a crowded market. So I hope we're working with Maya and looking at some of the spin-offs to think of what other parts of modern technology we can be more niche and more added value. And also things like electric motorbikes and bicycles themselves. And I mean, the firm that must have had the biggest sales hike must be Pasture Cycles. People could not buy a cycle during lockdown. All these old industries are suddenly becoming incredibly.
What's the question? What's the question?
Well, I'm just giving some feedback to the presentation.
I'm sorry, Councillor Shilton. Can you just hang on? Councillor Condacora, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wrapping up, if I may, Chair.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, it'd be really good if you could actually focus and give us an idea about some of the technologies like Pasture Cycles and some of the other areas around the modern green car technology that's not batteries.
Okay. Just to respond to a couple of those points, we obviously we're delighted that Marion has stepped up to be our vice chair. Anything around any conflict of interest, that is all, as you would imagine, properly managed through all of our governance, and Marion makes very strong representations, as you would expect, around the needs of skills across all age ranges. So just wanted to flag that. Absolutely agree with you, Councillor Condacora, on electrification agenda. The task force that has just been set up under Margot James works really collaboratively and collegiately with Myra. I know for a fact that George Gillespie and Margot James are in constant dialogue. Myself, Nick Abel and Martin Yardley just took a recent unexpected out of the dining room foray up to Myra and to have a look at their expansion projects up there just last week, and that has some fantastic assets which are 100% absolutely plugged in to the electrification. So we're really pleased around the way in which we hope Myra will become an integral feature. And then on the other matter of around cycling and the modern technologies, absolutely again agree with you around Pashley. I know they are probably due to make, unless they've already made it, another really positive announcement around supplying contracts for further West Midlands cycles. So it's all good news for cycling, and be rest assured we've got that front and centre stage of our thinking going forward.
Thanks. So final questions from Councillor Sargent and then Councillor Seckham. And I believe that's everybody.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Chair. I've spent sort of 35 years in distribution, mainly driving trucks and training people to drive trucks. And what I was wondering was there anything that's sort of aimed at distribution? I'm thinking of small companies that might want to get a bigger vehicle that can't necessarily afford to. There is a big shortage of HGV drivers.
Right.
This might be one for you, Claire, but recently, I mean, if I could work, so keep myself awake 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, I could work. I'm constantly harassed by agencies trying to get me to work for them. I'm currently doing a little bit for Royal Mail for my sins. But what I'm thinking along the lines of is there are a lot of self-employed couriers, and I did this myself a few years back, where I had four vehicles myself and just employed people.
Wow.
But sometimes, especially now, because even going to a 7.5 tonner, you've got to have a different license.
Yeah.
People haven't got this sort of grandfather rights. Whether there's anything there for smaller businesses, so they want to expand but they can't. They've probably got a really good worker that they think, well, actually, he's done a really good job, or she's done a really good job delivering, and we could pay for that license or get the money to get upskill that person. So I don't know if there's anything like that.
I have to say it's a brilliant point to raise. I genuinely don't know, and for those people that do know me, that's unusual for me to say I don't know, so I just don't know. But what I would say is, Phil, unless you can categorically answer that, we will check that out, because there used to be a whole host of things around HGV and forklift truck driving initiatives, but whether or not that there is something that has been developed in response to, as you say, the exponential growth in courier and that need to go to that next level up, which is probably, as you would imagine, as everyone's gone online, is a big drive, then we can certainly look at that. And that is exactly the kind of feedback that we want to give back to government around. This is where you need to basically channel resources and you need to put extra funded. So perhaps if we'll check it out and come back to you, and if not, we could maybe sound you out about the very specific things that you're raising.
I'm thinking about all the big buildings that are being built locally. I mean, I went past Magna Park the other day at Lutterworth, which is accessible from Nuneaton and Bedworth, and these massive places are expanding. HelloFresh, I think, are moving into Nuneaton.
Yes, they are.
There's a massive Amazon depot as well. I mean, Amazon are just like everywhere now, aren't they? They're huge places.
Okay, we'll check that out and come back to you if that's all right, Councillor Sargent. We can do that, can't we, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Andy. I'm on first name terms with our Amazon delivery driver locally, because the amount of orders we've put through. Councillor Seckham, over to you.
Thank you very much. There's just one thing that's cropped up that I'm aware of. We've had, those young people who have gone into work for the first time, who got jobs, and they met. In this particular case, I'm thinking of those who are in office work and are now having to work from home, and they do not have their network of support. So they don't build up all those interfaces and those support networks and things like that. I am quite concerned about their levels of mental health, their levels of ability to cope, and their coping mechanisms when they have issues that are quite pressurized, they don't have backup and support. And I'm wondering if there is anything that we can do to try to create some support networks for them, because it's those coffee machine chats, isn't it, that help kids, help young people
Yeah.
to grow their level of capability and their confidence to manage situations. And if we don't have that, we're going to have a whole generation that really are very unskilled in not the obvious skill things, but it's the personal skill.
Personal things. Yeah. Yeah. We don't, as far as I'm aware, Councillor Sackham, have anything of that nature, but it's certainly becoming a much more prevalent topic in conversations that we're having with our clients and our businesses around, and particularly yesterday when, there was it wasn't a directive, but there was a very strong message to say, actually, even if you have returned, you should now actually go back to working from home. There's quite a big disappointment factor. I've got 2 in my own household who are like, great, so I'm not going back to the office. So there's a responsibility, I think you're right, to sort of try and help them navigate. They're not going to have those opportunities in the way in which you say, like in their first year in an office, to sort of do that coffee machine, Christmas party kind of experience that all
they don't have the confidence necessarily to phone someone up and make that, that
absolutely.
I'm aware of this because my husband's got a niece who's just started in law. She's done all her degrees and all of that. She's done that. She's just started in a law firm in London. She had 2 weeks in the office and now she's working from home. How on earth do they learn how to cope?
I don't know. Well, I'll go back to our skills team and see if there's already something that is being developed, and we'll try and pull something together.
Just a wider support network.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, it's a real interesting point, that, because I know when the furlough started, before I was made redundant, my team used to have a standing meeting for 15 minutes every day where you would just have a click and have a chat.
Yeah.
And it wasn't work related.
Yeah.
And the sense of isolation without that actually is quite great. And I do think that Councillor Seckham she raises a really, really good point there, that it does affect people, and you are isolated at home. Even though you are working, you are still isolated, and you do have to be mindful of that. So Matthew, you've got your hand raised. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to pick up some of the discussion and questions, please, if I can, in terms of some of the county council's work at the moment. First of all, in terms of the retail, hospitality, leisure and tourism sectors, we're just in the process of rolling out a new business support programme aimed at those sectors, which obviously are the sectors most affected by the current crisis. So we'll be working with a number of industry specific sector specialists on the delivery of that programme, and we'll also be working very closely with the colleagues at the Growth Hub to promote the programme and to identify the businesses that are right for it.
They're in the briefing though, aren't they, Matt?
Exactly. There's a short paragraph on that new project in the paper. It's one of those funded through the Place Shaping Fund in support of the economic recovery plan. And then secondly, just picking up on the discussion about tourism, we've just awarded a contract for the planning, development and implementation of a Visit Warwickshire campaign. So to promote Warwickshire as a safe and open destination, and we're looking kind of at next year now, really, and obviously that domestic market that some of the members were talking about earlier on in the discussion. So we can provide more information on that in due course. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Matt. So before we finish on this agenda item, are there any further questions or comments? I can't see any hands. Can you see any hands there as well? Nope, that's it. Just to say, it was Helen clicking the mouse on the.
I've seen on the chat, so I'm really sorry, Helen. But thanks, Isabel, wherever you are. But thank you. And
Thanks,
Claire, through you as the chair,
Yes.
I would just like to say thanks for the opportunity to do this, and I'm obviously working with Mark and Monica and through all. I would stress one point: we can't do this on our own, and that's why actually, you know, it's important to come back and share with you guys what we do. So thanks for the chance to come along and do it.
You're welcome. There's a couple of things that I'd like to pick up with you privately, if that's okay, but I'll do it offline.
Yeah, perfect. No problem.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, we're all right to leave now then, Claire?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thanks
Thanks
very
for
much,
your
guys.
time.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
Bye. Right, okay, so next we've got the agenda item on the Warwickshire Bus Services report. Now, we did have the presentation of this report. Well, we had the presentation that is attached to this report a couple of weeks ago, so we shouldn't really need to go into too much of the presentation again. So I will hand over to who have we got? Margaret. Margaret, are you there?
I'm here, thank you.
All right, thank you, Margaret. I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks very much. So this report details the findings of the Bus Services Motion Report that was commissioned by Transport Planning to investigate the items in the Bus Services Motion, which was endorsed by full council back in December 2020. We commissioned this work to a specialist transport consultancy that has a partnership who Claire just mentioned we had a presentation from a couple of weeks ago, and they are leading consultants with expertise in public transport. So just to give the background very briefly, the Bus Services Motion included 5 objectives which sought to review our activity in relation to bus operations. It also looked at reviewing Section 106 developer contributions used to fund new bus routes over the last 10 years. It scoped out the use of new powers as set out in the Bus Services Act 2017, and that was specifically around the use of either advanced quality or enhanced partnership schemes. It considered the resources that would be required to deliver the council's key objectives, and also it looked at best practice, so specifically the Campaign for Better Transport report called The Future of the Bus. The key findings from the report are documented in the committee paper, so I won't go into that detail. However, I did just want to highlight the findings that are coming out of this in terms of a proposed schedule of initiatives to deliver improvements to the bus offer in Warwickshire. So if I just briefly touch on those. So highlights from this schedule include improving information on bus services, so that's better roadside publicity, but also real-time roadside information, ensuring that new developments are bus friendly by designing in the requirements at the earliest stage of the planning process, using the new powers as set out in the Bus Services Act to introduce an enhanced partnership. So we're looking at doing this along a key corridor, the Warwick-Leamington-Coventry corridor within Warwickshire. This would enable us to work with bus operators and have more influence over things like the service frequencies, the ticket types, and ensuring that we can coordinate different timetables of different operators. And essentially it would provide a step change in the bus offer. We're also looking at new bus links to fill in some of the missing gaps, and specifically as well looking at the potential to expand some demand responsive transport provision. And then finally, it was looking to host a Warwickshire annual bus conference, and that was really just to raise the profile of bus use within the county and just to set out each year what we would be looking to achieve. In addition to the above schedule, we're also actively looking at ways in which we can bring forward electric buses in Warwickshire. Early this year, we worked with Coventry City to submit a bid to the DfT's All Electric Bus Towns Fund. If successful, this would enable cross-boundary services between Coventry and Warwickshire to be converted to electric buses, and this would deliver electric buses on corridors that would branch into all 5 of our boroughs and districts. A decision on this bid is still awaited from the DfT. And then just to say that I think the report is really timely given the ongoing impact the pandemic is having on bus services. Latest estimates suggest that patronage levels are around 20% of pre-COVID levels, and the initiatives within the schedule will really help in terms of ensuring that buses can form part of our economic recovery, giving people the confidence and opportunity to use buses to get into their towns and villages. In addition, it would also help the county to move towards carbon neutrality by reducing CO2 emissions for journeys in Warwickshire. So just to summarise, if you endorse the recommendations in the report, officers will then undertake the following steps. So we will refresh the bus strategy as part of the update of the Warwickshire Local Transport Plan to include the matters arising from the bus services motion report. We'll further develop the measures that I've just outlined in the bus services enhancement schedule, and we would take a report to Cabinet seeking endorsement of the enhancement schedule. So if I can just take this opportunity to say we're happy to take any questions on this. I've also got some colleagues, so Nigel White is here and Andy Stokes from Transport Operations, who've also helped on this report. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Margaret. So I see some hands going up. I have Dave Shilton, Andy Jens and Keith Condacor in that order. So over to you, Dave, to start.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, a good report, no doubt about it. And what we was asking for last time, it seems to be well covered in here. But my question is, with the students returning, especially to Warwick University and Coventry University, travelling to and from Leamington and Kenilworth to the university, well, everywhere else, I suppose, as well. What reactions are we having from the county on the movement of passengers and the cleanliness of the coaches, the seating capacities, and also the wearing of masks? It's just to keep everybody safe.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Shall I take that now? Yeah.
Yes, please, Margaret. Yeah.
Okay. So, Andy, are you around as well? You might be able to chip in on this as well. So, certainly from discussions we've had with Warwick University, the number of students who will be travelling on a daily basis to the campus will be significantly reduced. I don't think they're looking at this stage that they would have 100% capacity of students on campus, and that's because it's a blended model in terms of some online learning and then also some on-campus learning. In terms of the measures that have been put in place, that would have been put in place by the commercial operators who undertake the services on those routes, and similarly in terms of the mask wearing, again that would be over to the operators to try and kind of enforce that as best as they can. Obviously, with the new government directives, there is a requirement for masks or face coverings to be worn on all public bus services. Andy, are you? I can't see Andy's initials. Are you there, Andy? Is there anything?
Yeah, yes.
Is there anything else to add in terms of the specific operations on that corridor?
No. I spoke to Stagecoach this morning, and they're putting in pretty much a full service to start with on the university service, because they're not quite sure what the demand is going to be, and then they're going to adjust things accordingly as they sort of take stock of the number of students that actually return. All of their buses will have they'll be fully social distancing will apply on all the buses going to Warwick University, and obviously face masks will be worn on the journey. So Stagecoach are basically going to be fairly reactive. They can change registrations fairly quickly with current legislation for COVID. They'll provide the level of service necessary to ensure that there's the proper social distancing in place.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Does that answer your questions? So next we've got Andy. Councillor Jens, are you on?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I'm certainly happy to endorse the report, but I'm afraid I missed the bus presentation when it took place, so a bit disappointed about that. But hopefully, I'm not asking anything that's already been covered there. Just looking at the committee papers, the committee report, I'm quite interested in paragraph 2.1, where, to quote, it says the County Council also provides and maintains on-street bus stop infrastructure and bus information, e.d. bus shelters. I'm just thinking, does that mean there's a County Council budget for that? And if so, how and where is it spent? Because as far as I know, all of the parish councils in my patch are responsible for bus shelters. They fund and provide the bus shelters. And just by example, Kingsbury Parish Council is currently facing a £5,000 bill for a shelter that was demolished by a speeding driver. Hopefully it'll be paid by insurance, but sometimes it would be useful if the county council could help with these things. Thank you.
Yeah, over to you, Margaret.
Okay, thank you. Nigel, can I ask you to pick up that one, please?
Yes. Hello, Councillor Jens. Bus shelters provided by the parish, by the county council, are maintained by county highways, and they've got specific budgets to cover for those costs, and they carry out regular cleaning of bus shelters owned by the county council throughout the county on a monthly basis. It depends who owns the bus shelter. Bus shelters provided by obviously the parish council, town councils are provided and funded by themselves in terms of maintenance. So county council will look upon the parish council to cover all costs, and also seek to ensure that, as you mentioned, the bus shelters provided by parish council are included in their insurance arrangements for exactly what you said, in terms of ensuring that they are covered if the structure is accidentally damaged in a road traffic accident. They can claim back expenses for repair or replacement from the party responsible for the accident.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you.
Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I firstly thank all the officers? This is a marvellously detailed report. The consultants have done a very thorough job, and it shows how useful it is to go from a motion to actually getting all this stuff done. And one of the questions is, how do we make sure this 169-page report isn't just left on a shelf? Because it's really, really good stuff. It's got a lot of detailed information in, so it's really important it's actually used. Second point, there's a lot of good stuff about Section 106, which has been a very weak and complicated process to get money out, and quite often we're too late when we ask for Section 106 and bus services. So how do we, even before this goes through the long-winded process of getting it in our next local transport plan, how do we get the Section 106 bus provision better? And thirdly, I think a few of the councillors picked up bus information. It's absolutely key. When you go to any of these transport symposiums and you get people who are experts in the industry, they say the information on the bus stop is actually what gets people knowing when it is, using it. If you have to go to an app, go to a computer, work out which company is running it, all that stuff, only the very keenest people will find out. If you walk past a bus stop and it says George Eliot Hospital, 1:15 and 1:45 to the hour, number 69 or whatever the number is, people really then use it. So there's bits in here about information, but how do we really get decent Warwickshire-wide information up to date on all our bus shelters? Because that would be a massive win out of this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Margaret, can I ask you to pick that up?
Yeah, I'm happy to pick up on that. So just to be clear, so I think what's been really useful with this report is that we haven't just listed a series of recommendations, we've listed a schedule of improvements that we want to see. So whilst that will form part of the local transport plan review, there are measures in there that we can start to take action on now within existing budgets. I guess what that schedule also does is then identify where we don't have funding within existing budgets, where we want to do a bit more. So the better roadside publicity does fall into that category. And I completely agree that, it's come out as a very high priority in terms of it's not just about digital and real-time information, it's very much just the basics in terms of getting that information so that people, as they arrive at the bus stop, that's the first time they happen upon that information. It needs to be very clear to the member of the public who arrives at that bus stop exactly what buses are calling at that bus stop and where they're going. So it's very much at the forefront of our thinking, and we certainly won't be waiting for this schedule to get into the LTP, for example, for us to take action on them. And similarly with the Section 106, that's another one where we can now take that action forward straight away.
Thanks for that, Margaret. Is that okay, Keith, or have you got anything that you want to add?
Picking up on just that point about the information, which is recognised, we haven't got a budget for putting the information on the bus stops, that will be very important for the COVID recovery. So I do think we need to be looking or asking when the COVID hopefully has a vaccine or dies out due to whatever seasonal factors, we can actually save our bus services by having them really well promoted with good timetables in the recovery phase.
Yep, no, happy to prioritise that.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Seckham and then Councillor Holland. So Councillor Seckham.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a couple of points. The one is I don't think Andy Jens got entirely what he probably wanted to understand about who owns what buses or bus shelters. And all I would add is what I have sort of learnt over the years. There was a budget many years ago when I was first on. Warwickshire County Council provided quite a lot of bus shelters, and as budgets reduced, that became less. And I suspect what Nigel is saying, that we do have a budget for maintaining those bus shelters that we still own. These days, provision of bus shelters entirely in my area has been either by my budget or partly by parishes and my budget, or entirely by parishes, or sometimes it's been a request that they've got from Section 106. So as the model has changed over the years, Andy, I suspect what you will see is whoever provides that bus shelter, which these days is mostly parish councils, will have that ownership of it and the insurance of it, etc. But we do still maintain quite a lot of bus shelters, which were a historic legacy of the ones that we probably provided. And I may be wrong on that. And I thought I saw Scott's hand up and thought he was going to come in on that. And I see Andy's come back in. And if I'm wrong, I do hope someone more qualified than me will answer. But that is just my understanding of it. And I would just say I completely do endorse what Keith has been saying about updated, regular and on-time information about what's going on. The pleasure of going to London is you can have an app which you can download, and you can be at the bus stop waiting for the bus, the number 88 bus, and you look on your app and you know it's 5 minutes away, or it's 2 minutes away, or actually it's going to be a bit late, but it's only going to be 8 minutes late. And you make a decision based on that, whether you're going to walk, or whether you're going to just walk on to the next bus stop. It would be wonderful if we could get to that point. And I understand the complications of it, but it surely is something, that a goal that we would want to achieve. And I think that's probably where Keith is asking us to go. And on Section 106 on bus provision, my experience in the past has been, and this of course is a more rural area, so I don't know whether this is true, but when we've had some quite big developments, particularly in my division, we got Section 106 to provide a bus for 5 years, I think it was. The usage of that bus was not sufficient for it to live beyond that 5 years and become something that a company wanted to take up. And then you end up with some dashed expectations from my residents, because they aren't going to get that continuation of a service which they, a few of them, albeit not enough of them, obviously, because the commercial decision had got used to having. So we have to be a bit careful about raising expectations that are going to be dashed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks. And I saw Scott. Scott, do you want to come in on this item rather than wait till the end?
I was just going to say, I absolutely agree with everything Councillor Seckham said there, and I think Councillor Jeans, the issue is that the bus stops is a real hodgepodge of who owns the bus stops. There are bus stops that are maintained by town councils. There are bus stops maintained by highways. What is consistent is that the information that goes into the bus stops is consistently done by the transport delivery team. So, and that's an area where we do want to see, improvements. As Councillor Sutton said, if the information is correct there on the board, then you you get people committed to using the bus. If they turn up at a bus stop, see information that's not correct, and have the experience of waiting for a bus that never turns up, it puts them off using the service.
Andy, have you got something to say on this point, or have you raised your hand for a new point?
I was just going to say, yeah, thank you, Chair, to thank Councillor Seckham and Scott and Nigel also for all that information. That's really useful. And I think the suggestion that I've just picked up from Councillor Seckham of possibly using delegated budget money to help fund the bus shelter I hadn't actually thought of that, and I think that's a really good idea, and I think that might help me out with the problem I've got in Hurley Village. So that's a really good idea. So thank you everyone for that.
Thanks. Councillor Holland, if you'd like to come in now, please.
Yes, thanks. I think we've got quite a long way to go, though, before the customer experience of travelling by bus is better than travelling by car. But the point's just been made by Councillor Condacall that this is a very detailed report and that it shouldn't just sit on a shelf and actually should be a working document, and I think that's really important. When we've been looking at bidding for funds for electric buses in Warwick, I was told we couldn't because the electricity supply isn't adequate because of all the new building. There's the extra load that's been put on the electricity supply. And I think we can make some forecasts about battery technologies and their improvement, but buses are likely, will need to top up their batteries in the bus station. And again, now, at the time of so much restrictions and a time when public investment is being thought about to get the economy going, can we actually do a survey of where infrastructure is needed to put in electric power cables so that recharging of buses is a possibility and thus makes electric buses possible?
Thank you, Margaret. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in on that. So the bid that we put forward jointly with Coventry in terms of the electric bus town, that would have to look at the power capabilities. So part of the work, if we get through to that next stage, it will do exactly as you've just suggested. It would have to look at what power supply upgrades may be needed at a variety of locations, and you're exactly spot on. Some of those charging locations would fall within our district and borough areas, and actually that's one of the things that we see as a real advantage, because if as part of a central government funding pot we can upgrade some of our power supplies to allow for electric buses to call at some of our key towns, that then hopefully means that if we then want to roll out electric buses, we've overcome one of the big hurdles that currently exists. So it's kind of a fingers crossed, and we have to wait and see whether we're successful and get through to that next round.
Thank you. Councillor Holland, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Fradgley, I've seen your hand go up.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to check, Margaret, you actually said earlier on that the corridor, Warwick-Leamington corridor, was being upgraded or improved or worked on. Does that include Stratford? I mean, are these corridors coming Stratford-Warwick way? Stratford way as well as Warwick?
So it's yet to be determined, really. So at the moment, the report is suggesting that we focus on the Warwick-Leamington to Coventry corridor, and that would be specifically for an enhanced partnership. So what the enhanced partnership delivers is it's an agreement between the county council and bus operators in a particular area, but we define that area. And then what it does is it means there would be some commitments on us in terms of making some improvements to the highway network. So that could be things like bus priority, for example, signal improvements. Equally, it could be to some of the bus stops. So if people think back to the quality bus partnership days, where we were very much, it was a collaborative approach between ourselves and the operators. I think we need to start somewhere, and the reason for picking that element of the corridor is that that's a very busy corridor, but there would be nothing in the future to then expand either on that or to set up a separate enhanced partnership for an expanded corridor. I think the important thing here is it's to to start with something and to really demonstrate what improvement we can deliver if we can collectively, ourselves with the operators, demonstrate improvements in that corridor, and hopefully that then translates to an increase in ridership levels.
Yeah, because it worries me a little bit. I mean, who do you work with for these enhanced partnerships? Is it something that you set up with the bus companies, or is there any element within the districts or towns that come into that partnership?
So essentially my understanding is we could instigate that. We'd have to work with the operators, and then we would then specify certain things that we'd want to see along that corridor. So that could be in terms of, I think I mentioned the service frequency. So I don't think we can set out the detailed timetable, but it could be the frequencies. Again, it's not specifically, we don't set the fares, but there could be different ticket types that we insist on having on that corridor. We could have a particular branding, for example, along that corridor. But to do all of that and to get operators on board with that, you do have to offer something as well from a highway authority perspective. So I think it's about us recognising our role in terms of improving the bus network. You know, a lot of the issues that the buses have are related to congestion hotspots, getting stuck in traffic. There's not always an obvious solution.
Come to Stratford in that case.
No, exactly, and come to all of our towns. And I think the difficulty we have is that we don't have big wide road spaces where we can obviously put in bus priority or bus lanes and things like that, but it's looking at it a little bit differently in terms of how we might be able to achieve that through bus gates, for example. So that's where the signals might change so that a bus can come ahead in the queue and things like that.
Could I just check as well, because I know when we talked about electric buses last time, you did say that Stratford was on that corridor for electric buses coming out of Coventry.
Yep, that's correct. That's correct, isn't it, Nigel? So we did have a map somewhere. So yeah, so it would go into each of the boroughs and districts because it's the cross-boundary services.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Nigel, you're on mute.
Many apologies. Yes, in terms of Stratford-upon-Avon, that would be the Service 18. It's been earmarked as part of the proposed electric bus scheme, which obviously is a cross-boundary Coventry to Stratford service via Warwick and Leamington.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Nigel.
Thanks. So I've got hands raised from Councillor Stokes and Councillor Condacor again.
Oh,
so Councillor
not Councillor, Officer
Oh,
Stokes.
sorry.
Yeah, just to elaborate on Margaret's point about the Warwick to Coventry, Warwick to Kenilworth sort of corridor that we'd be concentrating on. That would have a huge knock-on effect on reliability to buses going to and from Stratford as well, because they suffer considerably from major traffic congestion in the sort of Warwick-Leamington area. So it would seriously impact on the reliability of those services in the future. So it would help Stratford to some extent.
Thank you.
So now, Councillor Condacor. Keith, you're on mute.
Everyone sometimes. The quality bus corridors, it'd be really useful if they had cross-ticketing with the train services. So from the Neaton to Bedworth, we're having a bus interchange at Coventry Station, I understand. And so that'll then link into this corridor. So it's really, really important that we have simple cross-ticketing. So you can get a train ticket from the Neaton to the University of Warwick or whatever, and it all works through easily and cost-effectively. Is that part of the plans?
I might ask Andy's advice. So my understanding is that you can have joint ticketing across the different bus services along a corridor. I'm not sure whether with that model that you would then be able to have cross ticketing with rail. I think that's where we potentially fall short. Andy, you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, yes. Yeah, there's nothing that you can do legally to sort of involve train companies in any ticketing arrangements with bus companies. Obviously, it's something we could look at to see if it's possible to set up something a bit more adventurous. It happens in other places, so it's something we could explore with the rail companies as well, possibly.
And also, don't forget, Councillor, there's Plus Bus already in existence, where you could add on, I believe, a bus journey to your train ticket. That's already in place. Is it all stations in Warwickshire have plus bus?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, it is, Nigel. Yeah, you can basically buy one ticket, which then gives you unlimited travel in the town on bus services. So it's a train ticket from A to B plus travel within a town on bus services.
Yeah, that's, if I may, Chair, that's quite clunky, and it would be good to have an explicit, easy ticket to the University of Warwick from places in the Neaton and Bedworth and the like.
Agreed. Yes, understood. And that's something we can promote and look at further as part of the schedule.
Right. Are there any further questions? I don't see any hands up.
Chair, if I could just come in just on Councillor Second's point about information. So I'm not sure many people are aware of this, but Stagecoach actually have live information on their website. So if it's a Stagecoach bus service that somebody wants information on, you can type into their website which service you're looking at, and it does give you it in live time. So I've just put it into my phone now, and it's telling me that it's 3 minutes delay for a Kenilworth service, for example. So that's something we can circulate that link round to members, but I think it's something that we struggle, I think, sometimes to promote these things. We can check as well whether it's on our website, whether we promote that. I'm not sure that we do, but
most useful at the bus stop. That's where it's most useful.
Yeah, so part of our recommendation is to try and get some of that information at bus stops. But it was just to say, I think generally people aren't aware that actually on your phone now you can, for those who have a smartphone, you are able to check live information about where the bus is. Yeah.
Great idea.
Thank you. So I'd like to say thanks to Margaret and Andy and Nigel for the report. It's quite a comprehensive piece of work. So I would like to pass on thanks for that. And I'd just like to ask, is everybody happy with the recommendations? Can we have show of hands or a yes?
Yeah, happy with the recommendation.
Okay, so can we move and second that those recommendations are accepted?
Yes, I'll propose it.
Thank you. I'll take that. Keith, you're on mute, but I'll take it you were seconding. Thank you. Okay, is that everybody? Right, so thank you. And next, can I hand over to Scott for the one organizational plan?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members, I'm not going to delay you too long with this. What I was hoping to do is just pick up a few of the highlights from the reports, and then really get a chance to answer questions or take away any questions that I can answer and get you written responses. I think that one of the key things I wanted to point out is that for those of you that are using Power BI now, it's really worth having a look at the Power BI Communities OSC report, because it allows you to flick through the different charts and the different bits of information on the targets really easily. Which when I was pulling this together, I did that, and it was the first time I've used it in quite a while, and it's quite good. There are 11 key business measures that this scrutiny committee looks at. 6 are currently being reported on in Q1. Of the 6, 4 are on track and 2 are not on track. So a couple of the good news bits, as you would expect, numbers of people killed and seriously injured on our road network is significantly down. So in July of last year, the count was at 103, and this year is at 66. And I think that's just purely a tie with the amount of reduced traffic that's happened throughout the lockdown. And a lot of the things I'm going to mention here have all been affected by COVID. Really good news, percentage of household waste that's reused, recycled, or composted is at 52%, and this is currently in line with our target, so that remains on target. The rate of recorded crime per 100,000 population was at 71 in July, and again, this is below our target of 73. COVID the lockdown had a big change on our crime statistics, a bit of a shift. We saw a reduction in burglaries and violent crimes, but an increase in antisocial behavior and fly tipping. And apologies for the voice. I've had a nasty head cold for a couple of days, so I'm just trying to shake it off. And then finally, I'll pick up one specifically from one of my areas, which is flooding. and we had 76 properties protected through additional jetting works and enforcement procedures that have been taken by the flood risk management team. And this is despite the team having dealt with 3 significant flooding events this year back in November, January, and February, all of which the team were heavily involved in, including being out visiting homeowners and taking reports from homeowners that have been flooded. So they continue to work with the Environment Agency and districts and borough colleagues on all of that to pull together actions they can do to help protect our residents from flooding. I'll pick up one or two areas of where performance needs improvement. One that you'll see there that's highlighted in the report is the SEND home to school transport. That target's not on track, and that is partly about us building the delays and us building more provision within the county for those services to be held locally, whereas we currently have to transport children, some children long distances. And then finally, there's the one on unemployment, and again, as you can expect, this is going to be highly affected by COVID. But the indicator reports in arrears by 3 months. So looking at the January to March data, we were still on target with growth from 77% to 81% of people in the county employed. And our rate was higher than the national average. But again, that's going to have to be reviewed, and the target may need to be reviewed in light of post-lockdown and post-COVID. So I'll stop there. There's other things we could say, but I think that gives you a little brief on the key highs and lows in the both reports, and really leave a chance for you to ask any questions you want to ask.
Thanks, Scott. So is there anybody that wants to ask any questions? I'm not seeing any hands up. Oh, Councillor Kandaka, please.
Thank you. The system's a bit slow to move electronic hands. On page 233, I'm glad to read that the Bermuda Connectivity Project is running 18,000 years late. It might be useful to have an update on that. And taking in the last item, when it was conceived about 4 years ago, no bus operator wanted to run a service down it. And now we're getting to the stage where it might happen. Are we working with the bus operator to see what will happen post Bermuda Bridge if it happens?
Okay, I can give. Sorry, Chair. I can give a quick update on the Bermuda project. Bermuda is out to tender at the moment. We have agreed with a couple of the contractors have asked us to extend the return date by 2 or 3 weeks because they were still getting information together, particularly about the gas barrier that is there on site, and we've agreed to that. But we've got a strong contingent of contractors. I believe 5 contractors still that are going to submit tenders, and we should have those back in October. So we hope to be able to award a construction contract before Christmas. So that's the intention there. If I could ask Margaret or one of the other colleagues that may still be on about buses, or I can take the question back about the Bermuda bus, but I understand that is one of the intentions, is that we would pursue a bus service on that route.
I can still see Nigel on. I'm not sure who else. Nigel,
Yes,
are you able to answer about the buses for the Bermuda Bridge?
Yes, indeed. We've received funding from the DfT regarding supported services in 2020-21. Additional funding aimed at boosting bus patronage across the UK. Andy Stokes' team, Patrick Trumbull team, has secured part of that funding, which is about £500,000. Part of it's been is going to be used to deliver a demand responsive scheme serving the entire Rugby Borough area, and part of it's going to be used to provide or extend an existing bus services to serve the Bermuda residential area on a more regular basis. I can I'll ask Andy Stokes to provide you more details if you wish to.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think there's anything. Councillor Condricourt, have you got anything else you want to add to that?
No, that'd be very useful if Nigel could provide us information, because it's like seeing if it will connect to the hospital and the railway station, because they were the bits that were very difficult to get between.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My comment on that is there's no rush on this project.
Understood. Yes.
Take your time.
Okay.
18,000 years.
Well, you can add another 18,000 years on that for me and for most of my residents, but let's not go there. Dave, have you got a...
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, mine's regarding the fly tipping. Yes, you know, the increase in fly tipping. The question is, has that been related to our tip closures, our recycling centre closures over the last few months? And did that have an impact on that? And if it is also so, what are we doing about preventing the fly tipping or even imposing greater fines? Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Is that something you can pick up?
I can, yes. Councillor Shilton, there was an increase in fly tipping, which was pre us reopening the household waste recycling centres. But I think the report's incorrect there. I think it should also say littering, because we had an general increase in fines for littering that were issued as well. So we're not sure if that date is being slightly skewed by that littering bit as well. But now the household waste recycling sites are open. We've not had any reports from districts about increased fly tipping.
Well, that's great, Chair, that there's no increase. But what are we doing regarding fly tipping? So I do know there's a case on camera where reported to the police, I believe the county, and they were told nothing they could do about it. You know, it surprises me. And that happened in Kenilworth.
Claire, can I help?
Yes, Heather, I was just going to bring you in on that. I saw your hand go up.
This issue is being investigated with the Warwickshire Waste Partnership, which we have a meeting of next week with the Environment Agency, and how we all work together with the districts and boroughs, because actually taking forward the fly tipping regulations is a district and borough responsibility. So they would pick that up. We're not having any reports of fly tipping being associated with using a booking system at the recycling centres. In fact, we have had nothing but compliments for the booking system, and people have been very appreciative. We've seen that across the board. In fact, the one in Kenilworth has not been quite as busy as some of the others. Hunters Lane in Rugby remains the busiest. So we've certainly not had any fly tipping. They don't intend to take it into a recycling centre. They have no intention of doing it. These are small builders who've probably taken the money off somebody, or small people doing gardens, etc. Probably taken the money off somebody to dispose of it and don't want to do it, so they just pocket the money. So yeah, that's as it is. But it is a district and borough responsibility. But as I said, we are picking it up through the Warwickshire Waste Partnership to see what influence we can bring to bear on increasing the fines for fly tipping and all its associated problems.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. On the subject of the recycling centres, could I ask whether there's any information on how many of the bookings are actually fulfilled? So how many people are booking and then are no-shows? Because I've heard a few comments from people that people are booking things up and then not going. So that's a waste of it's a waste of a time slot.
Yeah.
And it's a waste of our staff's time as well, because obviously, you know, we need to make sure that people are fulfilling. Do we know if people are actually kind of clocked in and then clocked out?
Yes, they are. They're ticked off on sheets. So they are. There will be some stats around the amount of no-shows that we get. I'm not sure it's collated in the format that's easily accessible, i.e. it might be paper.
Just paper-based.
Yeah. So that may be more of a difficulty to get to. But I'm sure it's something that we could take a look at to check on. And I'll take it forward with the Waste Partnership to see where we're going. And
Thanks, Heather.
That's meeting next week. So yeah.
Right, brilliant. Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Condacor, I see your hand up again. Do you want to?
Yeah, just a quick point on the fly tipping. From the pictures I've seen on social media, some of the fly tipping around Bulkington clearly is these sort of small traders who put postcards through your door saying fascias or gardening with a mobile phone number only. And I think we should tackle some of it through trading standards, trying to educate people and getting some of these road traders out of business, because there's a lot of people with very glossy cards. Yeah, we're national, this firm. It's actually one man in a truck who'll dump it on the roadside near Bulkington or Wolvie or wherever. So I think we do need to tackle it from multiple aspects. Thank you.
We will be, Councillor Condacor, and thanks for that suggestion.
Thanks for that.
It will bring the Environment Agency in, our own agencies and districts and boroughs. It has to be a partnership approach to this, including the police.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thanks for that. Have we got any further questions? I'm not seeing any other hands up. Isabel, are you seeing any hands? No. Okay, thank you very much for that. So we'll move on to the next agenda item. Oh, sorry. Yes. Can we all agree to approve the document? Hands? Yes. I've got thumbs. Yes, thank you very much. So that's noted that this document's approved. Next agenda item is the Q1 performance progress report, and that's you again, Scott. Over to you.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I sort of did both at the same time. So some of that was from the Q1, and some of that was from the
sorry,
the OOP thing. So
you confused me on my first time out.
Yeah. Sorry. So, any
are we happy
on the other one as well? Happy to take.
Yeah. Has anybody got any questions? No, we're all happy to note that report as well then. Seems that way. Thank you very much. So straight on to agenda item 8, which is the work programme. Is there any comments? I wasn't actually planning on making any changes to the work programme as it's laid out that I've inherited. So I'm happy to actually leave it as is, based on the fact that it's already been thrashed out with my previous the previous chair, and also democratic services and reports that are due. So I'd like not to mess around with the timeline on that. Is everybody else happy with my no, I can't. Oh, Councillor Fradgley.
I was just saying yes, because my picture's not up, so I can't put a thumb up. So I put a hand up instead.
Thank you for that. Councillor Shilton, I can see your hand as well.
Yes, Chair.
Is everyone happy with that, or is this a question?
Mine is on page 3 of 3. It's the top item, HS2 grants. HS2 in my area are causing lots of problems with road closures and God knows what. I just want to make sure that we are being reimbursed, fully reimbursed by HS2 for the problems that they're actually causing us.
Okay, I think we're going to have to. Yeah, we'll probably take that offline, but yes, we will look to get that on the work programme if it's been there for future review. But for the upcoming few months that we've got, I'd like to leave everything the same. We'll have to find a slot for that
right
beyond that point, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay, as long as it's there. It's,
well, it is on the items of future work, so it is there. So right, so if everybody is happy with that, I believe, barring any urgent items, has anybody got any urgent items to bring up? And I've not got any urgent items either, so I close the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Well done, Chair. Well done.
It's the live stream.